Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a full walkthrough of how I did this bridal look because I've been trying to learn to do my own wedding makeup since February last year. So I have picked up a few things, if I do say so myself. So if you're someone who's learning to do their own wedding makeup or they're just planning on doing their own wedding makeup and want to learn some tips, keep watching. You never know, you might pick something up from me. I've been teaching myself how to do my own wedding makeup for about a year now. So it has been a long old journey, but I really do feel like this look is going to be the look that I go for on my wedding day. Just because it brings everything that I want together. Like, it looks natural, it looks soft, and I feel like me. That was the most important part. Anyway, let's do this. The first thing I always do is my brows. Before I even prime, actually. Now, disclaimer, at the minute I'm using a brow product that I don't usually use because it's a bit too warm on me. But my usual brow product ran out. And also, I found it difficult to find really cool toned brow products anyway. All of that to say, ignore my brows. And if you think they're too warm, you're not the only person thinking that. It's running through my mind as well. Today's also going to be a good test of whether I can actually recreate this and how easily I can recreate it actually. Hopefully you've seen the after of me first and that looks great and I'm not complaining about it. But right now there's so much that can happen. There's so much that could go wrong. See what I mean about these brows? I wish I could just have someone to come in and do my brows just exactly how I like them. But you know the only person that can do that? Me. I need to rely on myself to do that. We're doing the eyes first, and I always do the eyes first on my bridal tests. Because I don't trust myself with the fallout of eyeshadow. And it would just ruin the base really, wouldn't it? This is the Plouise in the shade Rumour 2. And I do carve out my brow. A lot of people, I say a lot, I've probably had about a couple of comments, but I had a couple of comments saying that when I carve out my brow it looks like a scar tissue. That hurt, but do you know what, when I carve out my brow it does just like elevate it. Let me show you. So I don't really feel like this step is absolutely 100% necessary. I just prefer it. I feel like by carving out the brows as well I can make the eyebrows look more equal. So it's almost a hack too. I'm blending this out with a little beauty blender. It's dirty. Mind your business. I will be using a clean one on the day. I feel like I can treat myself to that. Okay. I'm going to come right in close to do the eyeshadow. Like this. Hello. And you know what? I was putting my hair in front of me to look nice and aesthetic, but it's just annoying actually. So it's going behind me. I'm using the video I posted on TikTok as reference. Where are you? Okay. Okay, bronzer shade first. And the bronzer shade I'm using is from the Bare Basics palette by Sculpted by Aimee. This is in the shade Nude 1 because this bronzer is a little bit more cool toned and I think it works as the perfect base for me. Basically, the bronzer that you use is the bronzer that you're going to be using as powder on the rest of your face. Just so it ties in nicely. I don't know if I'm meant to set this Plouise base with translucent powder, but I never do. So I'm just putting this on my eye about halfway and ever so slightly going up in the crease, kind of going all the way down to the inner corner and then just building that up to a level that I like. Now because I want to go soft I need to remind myself not to go too far because you can always add more on. It's hard to take things away and that's deep. This is where I'm changing something ever so slightly. But last time I put on like a warm toned colour on top. This one here from the Love Story Wedding Palette by Sculpted by Aimee. However, I think I need a little bit more pink running through the eye just to match the lipstick and the cheek, which is also called blush. So I'm going to use the blush that I plan on using, which is from, again, Bare Basics palette, the best one you'll ever have. And I'm going to use some of that just to kind of, I just want everything to marry up. It's a wedding. But yeah, I'm putting that on. Just have a little bit of pink on the eye up here. Now I'm going to start building this up again. And I've just put the pink on, but I'm going to go back in with the bronzer shade just to deepen it up a little bit more. I'm using a smaller brush here for the definition-y parts, so I can really control it a lot better. And with my kind of eye shape, I like to add in a little bit more definition over the, I don't want to call it like a hooded eye because I don't want people to say that it's not hooded because I don't think it is, but I don't really want to call it a fatty fold because that just sounds so so wrong, and I've said that before and it doesn't sound right. Anyway, I like to define that a little bit more, so then that the shadow will kind of like reduce it almost. Something that I always forget to do when I'm doing my wedding makeup is remembering that I don't always look like this, that I look like this. So I have to remember to put my eyeshadow in that place there instead of up here. Next step is adding more and more definition, and I'm using this darker shade here from the Bare Basics palette again. And I'm going into the outer corner of my eye here, and then a little bit up, and kind of just blending that in as much as I can. Kind of doing it in like almost a V, so it looks like that. Is that the right one? I've just put the wrong shade on. Oops. Well, I'm gonna have to amend that in a minute anyway. So with this definition shade, I try and go a third of the way in. And if you're thinking, that doesn't look very natural, I understand what you're saying, but when everything comes together, it does end up looking more natural, I promise. But because it's wedding makeup, you want it to be a little bit extra anyway. So I've been told. Now I'm just taking the bronzer shade and just adding that over on top, because I feel like this blends it all together even more. At this point is where I sit back and I'm like, do I like the look of that? Do I want to add more warmth? And I don't think that I do at this point in time. So I'm going to move on. Now we're working on the inner lid. Now for the inner lid, I like to take on all the 2016 makeup inspiration that I learned through that time period. And I do a little half cut crease. The reason I do this is twofold. One fold, I love it. Twofold is it makes my eyes look bigger, because I ever so slightly overline. So my natural eyelid, if you can see, goes from there to there. And when I'm carving out the lid part, I tend to go a little bit higher. So it kind of gives the illusion of a more open eye. I make sure to only go about halfway on my eyes. And by the way, I use the Plouise base for this. And it is quite a thin layer that I put on for this. Like, I don't want it too thick because otherwise it just feels heavy on the eyes. But then I blend it very carefully with the blender. And also a trick here to make sure the lines don't look too like stark is to just blend that a little bit with the rest of the eyeshadow. And if it goes too far down, that's fine. We can sort that out. It's all fixable at this stage. There comes a stage. No, actually, I'm gonna back myself. It is all fixable. Then with this part here, you can use a matte eyeshadow, you can use a shimmer, you can use a sparkle. I'm gonna go with a shimmer because it's what I like the look of. Hello, where have you gone? Well, I've lost the brush that I usually use for this, but you just need a flat girl like this. And I'm just using the Love Story Wedding palette, the shimmer shade from there. This one on the end. It's champagne-y, it's pinky, I think that's what I'm gonna do. That was embarrassing. Moving on. I'm just packing that on to the lid. When you're putting the shimmer on, you don't really want to go above that crease that you've drawn out, just because then it just eradicates it all. And you're putting some good work doing that. But if you feel like you need a little bit more definition in there, you can go back in with that thin brush and just add a little bit more on top, blend it in a little bit better. It is at this point you can add in a tiny little wing. Now I've lost the brush I usually use to do this with, which is unfortunately disappointing and hurtful. So I'm just going to use this one. But the wing isn't necessary. It's just something you can do if you want to add a little va-va-voom. And I didn't do this last time with this look, so I am testing out today. I'm going to use this brush. Basically, sharp and angled is what you need. And I'm going to be using Bare Basics again. The darkest shade here, so it's like a really dark brown, but don't be scared by the intensity because you won't be using a lot of it. It's just to kind of make the eye look bigger again. And a lot of people said that they missed the liner in the last look, so that's why I'm adding it on and testing it out today. At this point where you're thinking that looks really bad, but I'm here to tell you it's fine to be messy because you can clean it up with concealer. At this point in time though, I'm going to just smoke this out. I think I may have gone too hard with this, to be fair, but it's okay because it's fixable. I hope it's fixable anyway. I believe in myself. I want to now blend this a little bit better because at the minute it's not blended very well, of course. So I'm just using the shade that I've already used, like the dark brown, and popping that on top. Now this isn't the darkest brown that we've just used, but basically like a shade above that. And I'm just like diffusing that with the shade we've just put on. That just makes it look okay again. These are officially done. Now it's time to get on with the base. We're priming first with the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Glow Serum. This is in the shade Main Squeeze, and I think I put too much on here, sorry, ignore me. Okay. Also, I forgot to say, this is a good way for me to test this makeup today as well, because my hair, I had it dyed. I had it done. I got it done a little bit lighter. I got some like baby lighters put in to like make it look lighter because I was having a bit of a blonde identity crisis. Because as I've got older, my hair's got darker. So it'll be good to see this makeup with this new hair. I'm a new person now. For foundation, I'm almost 98% sure that this is going to be my wedding foundation because it's just so beautiful. And it's the Sculpted by Aimee Satin Silk. Now, at the minute, I am using the shade 1.5 and mixing it with the shade 2.75, like that, just so I get a really good shade match for myself. I find the 1.5, I actually think it's my perfect shade, to be honest, but I always feel like it's too pale for me. So I like to warm myself up a bit with the 2.75, but I always, after mixing them together with my little brush, I'll test it on my neck first, just to make sure that it's not a ridiculous match. And yeah, I think that one is a bit, so I'm going to add a little bit more of the 1.5 on the neck there. Yeah. It's been highly contested on my TikTok, but a lot of people seem to think that I have pale olive skin, partly because you can see a lot of green around here, especially in person. So I have thought about getting like a pale olive foundation for the wedding day, but I just do like the way that neutral looks on me, and I feel like I'm a neutral pale olive anyway, so this undertone works on me. Anyway, I'm just using this trick that I learned from Casey Jane Hughes, which is called priming the brush. I'm pretty sure it's like a really classic makeup trick, but that's who I learned it from, and she's one of my faves actually ever. I love watching her videos. So I prime the brush with the foundation, and then I can start applying it, and I apply it around my nose first, and then I build out. When I was first practicing my wedding makeup and trying different looks, I definitely put 2 thick layers on of like everything, because I thought that's what you needed, but really, and I learned this from another makeup artist called Kelsey Bain, every like part of makeup you're adding on, like the layer of foundation, the layer of concealer, the layer of bronzer, is a layer in itself. So the makeup is going to look quite thick on the day, so you don't need a really thick layer of foundation. Oh my god. I have just realised that that looks horrendously unblended. 1 second, let me sort that out before. Oof. Oofty, oofty, oofty. Can't believe I showed that to you all. Now I'm moving on to the bronzer and the blush. I'm using my Made by Mitchell curve case for this. For my bronzer, I'm using the shade Hollow There. And as much as I love this case, I do think I want something a little bit longer wearing on the day, but I want a bronzer that's not as like orange, because I feel like sometimes it looks a bit weird on me. So I pop it on my hand to like warm it up a bit, and that's when I can start. And I do like the priming of the brush technique thing again with this one, and I always go too low with my bronzer and my blusher, so I need to go higher, and higher is here for me. And I always forget to blend it into my hairline. I just forget these things, and then I watch the videos back, and actually people comment on my videos and they're like, can you blend? And I'm like, no, actually. As much as I do want to use a more like longer wearing bronzer and blusher on the day, the way these blend, oh, it's just stunning. So I pop this up here, and I pop some on my forehead. Make sure that's blended into my hairline again. Another trick that I learned from Kelsey Bain is if you bring your bronzer too far down and you're like, I need it to look a little bit more, just get the brush that you primed the foundation with, and you can go back in with the foundation and just make that line a little bit more clean. And if it looks a little bit unblended anyway, you can just go back over it with the foundation brush. Blush. And now I have dabbled betwixt these two blushes here. This one is the one I used last time. It's the strawberry cream one, and as much as I loved it, it did almost look a little bit more warm on me and a little bit more orange on me, and I was looking for something a little bit more pink. So today I'm going to try Cold Heart, and if I don't like it, then at least I've tried it. But again, I'm popping that onto my hand, priming the brush a little bit, and then adding it Now I add this one a little bit higher. I know sometimes with blush placements, I think normally for everyday makeup with blush placements, I like it to be more on the apples of my cheek for my face shape. But for this bridal makeup, I think when it's applied like this on the higher bit of the cheekbones, it looks like it elevates the whole look. I don't think this is the right brush to use either. I want to state that for the record. Someone told me I actually need to put the blush into my hairline, but I'm not sure if that's the right move. You know what, if you put on a cream blush and you find that it's not the right colour and it's not the colour that you want, and you don't want to redo the whole thing, I think there's ways that we can add on a powder blush on top and warm it up a bit or cool it down a bit. There's things we can do. So this is what we're looking like so far. And as a base, I'm happy with it. I'm quite liking the pink as well. I do like to add a little bit of nose contour because otherwise my nose looks a little bit bare. So by adding just a little bit of definition, and I'm using the Milk Makeup Sculpt Stick. This is in the shade Toasted. And I'll just run that a little bit down my nose. Kind of going with a natural shape. I don't want to make it look like super thin and like not like my nose shape because I don't like my nose. What I do is I like to accentuate like a button kind of vibe. So I just put a little bit underneath and then a line over the top like that. Looks crazy now. In a second it's going to look good, I swear. And then I just... yeah, alright. Concealer! It is at this stage that I usually put on the colour corrector that changed my life. And I know that sounds dramatic, but when you have dark circles, you'll know what I mean. But she gone. I've misplaced her and I don't know where she is. The room is a bit messy at the minute, so it'll be here somewhere. So instead, I'm just gonna concealer up. And I'm using the, oh, actually, I need to carve out my wing now. And I'll use the Armani one to do that. And on this occasion, I again relax my eyes. Just follow this line up here, like that. This one is not going to go that well. Okay, that went well, first time. I'm using a blender to blend this out, and I know we should probably be using brushes at this point, but I don't know, the way the blender blends under my eye, just, it makes it look perfect. And sometimes when I use a brush, I feel like it kind of makes the fine lines look a little bit more noticeable. Oh, that's not equal actually. Right, that's enough. I'm going to end up going too far and I'm going to ruin it. Now this next step is a completely unnecessary next step, but I like to put on another concealer on top, and I just put it in the darkest parts of my under eyes. So just that bit there. And I blend that out a little bit to just add like a little bit more brightness to it. Use the House Labs in the shade 04 to do that. Now on to the next stage, and this stage is where it starts getting a bit more serious. So we're putting powder on it in a second, and it's at this point in the routine where I like to sit back and see if I need to do any more adding or blending of any of the cream products, because once we put powder on top, you can't really go back from that. So I try and make sure everything's as perfect as I want it to be before that happens. So I'm just going to add like a little bit more blush up here, because I feel like some of the concealer got in the way a little bit. Maybe add a little bit more contour. Maybe mix the two together, maybe. I don't know. And then once that's done, I can finally start putting some powder on. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish in the shade 1. Fair. And I put this under my eyes first. Now I always avoid powder day to day, and I just wear, well, nothing really. I just leave it all creamy and stuff. However, adding pressed powder on changed the whole vibe of wedding makeup for me. I remember doing it before without adding as much powder as I do now, and it just never felt that bridal to me. But ever since adding my powders, it's just where it's at. On top of the pressed powder, I add a layer of loose. I pop it onto the puff like this and then smush it off into my hand and put it on top again. And I put it all on the areas where I'm not putting on another powder product like powder blush or powder contour or even bronzer. Oh my god. I just remembered I forgot to put some bronzer on my jawline. Oops. Then I do actually like going back in with a pressed bronzer, just to kind of add to that flawless finished look. And now it's time for the powder bronzer and blush. So I'm going in with the powder bronzer first on top of where we put the cream bronzer. If I feel like I need to put it anywhere else, I do. And then on top of the cream blush with a powder blush. And this just really, really intensifies it. I think it looks so good. Look at that. And if you're doing your own wedding makeup, you may think it's too much blush, it's too much contour, but we've got to be thinking of the professional pictures as well, and how much the makeup will get washed out naturally because you're getting the pictures done by a professional camera. From what I've learned, it's always worth adding a little bit more, and then it just like naturally coming off slightly during the day. We've put on a lot of powder now, so it's time to add some of the shine back in with a highlighter. I just run this across the top of my cheeks up here. This is the Aimee highlighter. This is honestly 10 years old, but it's good and I've got loads left, so I'm using it. And sometimes I feel like I've not got enough sparkle on my cheeks, so I use this Hourglass ambient lighting blush in the shade Luminous Flush and add that on top. So that's like 3 blushes we've used today, which may seem like too much, but under my eyes is where I usually end up going too hard. So what I've been doing now is just using that bronzer shade that we've already put on the eyes and doing that ever so slightly underneath, trying not to go too far down. And then I did a look recently that wasn't really part of a bridal look, but in that look I joined up the lower lash line a little bit with this upper little wing. Sorry, I forgot what it was called then. And I did think that looked quite good, so I'm going to try that again. Okay, are we comfortable with that? Does that look okay? I think it looks okay. We are nearing the end. It's time for lashes. I am no pro at putting on lashes. This we all know. But someone told me to put mascara on before I applied cluster lashes, and I was like, that's not going to work. I don't want to listen to it. So I never did it. And then I tried it once, and do you know what? Everyone was right. Sometimes you just have to listen to people. So I put on a layer of mascara first, and once the layer of mascara is all on, I can start using my cluster lashes. Now clearly I've used up a fair amount of these, so I'll be getting a new one for the actual day. But these cluster lashes are just the things that have been working for me the most. And I'm using these ones by Tatti Lashes, and they're in the shade Cappuccino, so they're brown cluster lashes. And I'm also using their sensitive eyelash glue. And then I barely even need to wait for it to dry before I start putting on the, hold on, now I need to maneuver myself. Before I start needing to put this on. Oh crikey, okay, one sec. I'm panicking now. Look how easy that was. So I put on the 14mm on the outer corner, the 12mm on next to it, and then the 10mm next to that. And we have like the perfect half lash. But then I do put mascara over the top of it, just because I feel like it just meshes and melds and merges everything together. There's a word there that I've obviously forgotten and I can't. It's not coming to me. Blends. Blends. And then just gives your lashes like that extra little bit of sun. Look at that. And then I apply it to the bottom as well. For my bridal lip combo, I'm still deciding between a couple of options, but I think the front runners at the minute are either Dervish lip liner by MAC, the Whirl lip liner by MAC, and the Honey Love lipstick and Thanks It's MAC by MAC. So these are the combos I've been doing at the minute. Today I'm going to try a new combo, and I'm going to try Thanks It's MAC and Whirl. I've popped you in close for this, but this is Whirl first and Thanks It's MAC. Ooh, I like this combo. This might be my favourite actually. Obviously you can put gloss on top of the lip combo, but because this is like, got like, it's lustre on, so it's a little bit sparkly in itself. I don't feel like I need it. So the headband's coming off. And how does the look with the hair? I think this is actually really nice. Okay, addressing the elephant in the room. I went a bit hard, didn't I? Okay, this isn't as supernatural as the other one I did last week. That's my bad. However, I don't hate it. I actually don't hate it at all. And in fact, let me put the hair back because I'm having hair up on the day. So if I have it up, that will give us more of a, oh, yeah. In terms of longevity and making sure that it lasts all night long, I never take like the longevity of the products too seriously, because I have so much faith in the fixing spray that I use, because the fixing spray is this Kryolan fixing spray. And you may have heard of this before, you may have not. If you've not, I feel sorry for you, because this fixing spray, as much as it smells like hairspray, it smells vile, this will keep your makeup on possibly forever. So whenever anyone asks like, oh, how's the longevity of the foundation, I'm like, it's fantastic, but it also doesn't matter, because this is so good, it just locks it in. So long story short, get this. But this is the look all finished. I love this as a bridal look. I feel very bridal. Compared to the eye look I did last week, I think I prefer that. And if you want to go see that, it's on my TikTok or my Instagram. But the things that I've changed are the things I think I'm definitely going to keep, like the blush. The blush I really, really like. It looks more pink, it doesn't look orange. Yeah, definitely. I think maybe I want a little bit more warm tones in my eyes. I don't know. But anyway, let me know what you think. Pop it in the comments below. If you think I should change anything, if you think I could do anything differently, if you think I could be more efficient in the way I'm doing this, please let me know.